Welcome to the Finance and Future Tech Show. We get to air that is on Monday and Thursdays on Ejaz Radio. That is radio.ejazug.com. You can be able to listen to the show live. But in case you missed that, there is always the show available on any podcast app of choice. Just search for the Finance and Future Tech podcast. So that is Finance and Future Tech. And the hashtag, in case you want to follow up on the conversation, is FFT Podcast. And that is across all social media platforms. On Instagram, we are on there, and X, formerly known as Twitter, we are also available, and also LinkedIn and Facebook, but mostly we are mostly interactive on Instagram and X, and that is using the Finance and Future Tech podcast. So today on the show, I know we've covered different areas. We've talked about the insurance sector, we talked about the finance sector, which we keep talking about, but there's also another aspect of the reason why we started the podcast, which is the legal side of things, and we have to talk about that today. And my guest on the show today is going to take us through some of the issues that are happening within, some of the innovations that are happening within the tech space, but also some of the hindrances as to why the adoption of technology is not happening as fast as we would like it to. And please welcome to the show Kheri Mbiro, and he's going to talk to us. Please introduce a little bit about yourself, and welcome to the show. Glad to have you
on. Thank you so much, Mark. My name is Kheri Mbiro. I'm a senior partner, Breakthrough Attorneys, a law firm that is predominantly focusing on corporate commercial, looking at investment, trade, as well as corporate matters. Innovation and technology is at the center of the today's world when it comes to corporate and commercial matters. So we are one of the leading law firms when it comes to innovation and startup space in Tanzania. So I'm very happy to be here, and looking forward to a beautiful conversation with you.
Thank you so much. Glad to have you on. And we are starting off right there where you ended. So how has the adoption of technology transformed the day-to-day operations within law firms, for example, yours?
It's a bittersweet sort of situation. Adaptation of technology in terms of caliber and class of law firms is different compared to the total number of firms that are there in the country. So while you go to towns or corporate setups in terms of law firms, you'd say adaptation has been done in a greater scale. But in terms of the total number of law firms, I would say that adaptation is still not doing very well. However, for corporate firms, for firms that are sort of, in city centers, in urban areas, most of them have been trying and adapting to technologies quite frequently.
Yeah. And how was this? What are some of the changes that brings? Because when we say adaptation of technology, someone, for example, if they are not dealing with law firms that are within the urban areas, what does the adaptation of technology change as far as opposed to what they are used in their daily day-to-day business?
The number one is communication. The number one adaptation that is sort of changed and sort of disrupted the norm is communication. And it was fast-tracked with the pandemic itself. When you're talking about Corona, when we were forced to be in court on a physical sort of basis, all of a sudden we sort of needed to change the norm and to create a medium of communication that would substitute the need for personal presence somewhere. So most firms adapted. Most practitioners, some of them are not necessarily firms, but they're legal practitioners, adapted really quick. And you would see now most of them have even reduced the over-reliance of physical meetings by actually setting up Zoom, Teams meeting, etc. So that is the first sign of speed and the willingness of practitioners and law firms to adapt to technology. And this was also reciprocated by the stakeholders in the legal sector as well. You see, the judiciary of Tanzania created a system that manages cases online. So you can file online, you can now litigate online. And upon request, the entire case can be done. Now the excuses of the witness is not here or there can no longer stand in court. So these are some of the reasons why adaptation sort of took a quite a speedy turn to the better. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's another thing I would like also to touch on, because you talked about communication, but then there's also the cloud computing side, where files are easily stored in the cloud, and they're easy to access. How can that? How can you talk a little bit about cloud computing and how that is helping also the legal side of things, and how they're helping, how it's helping the day-to-day operations too?
Yeah. So in terms of the changes. So the number one, like we said, is communication, but you can also speak about archiving and, like you say, storage and accessibility. So we are also seeing that is happening more and more with law firms in terms of storing, making sure that accessibility is first of all at all times. It defeats the traditional physical filing that you have to access only from one point at one time. But so now more and more law firms are going into that. They're also using online features like apart from Google, Google, but they're doing AWS, they're doing other iCloud. But the key aspect, because of the sensitivity and nature of our work, is securitization and accessibility as well. So integrity of the data that is stored in there, especially now in the age of data protection and privacy, is also a very big thing. So those are the only issues that you would have on this. So those are the key things that you would have on that subject. However, it's something that is happening more and more. Most law firms are using softwares and systems like Clio, like Basecamp, which allow a bit of these aspects, and you can also share in terms of information and data at one place. And these are just mentioning a few. So in terms of archiving and cloud computing, that is something that is done very much. Yeah. And remember, for example, the systems like Dropbox itself, most of the time you have to create a data room with your clients to share documentation. You can no longer send files and files. Or when a client wants to share information that you need to work with, data rooms all need cloud computing so that all the people in the chain of communication can actually access it easier and better. So these seeing more and more law firms are actually using such tools.
Yeah, and seeing how sensitive, of course, the data that you have to keep, and whether it's regarding the cases that you're handling or any of the contracts that you're working on, what are ways in which you are ensuring the protection of that data? Because that's one of the biggest issues that you talked about, which is the security of that sensitive data that you keep. How are you making sure that that is kept safe?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, first of all, is to actually deal with the reputable. The number one thing is a reputable source that provides you the service, the cloud computing, the storage services. That's number one. Number two, you have to comply with the law. So depending on the jurisdiction that you're in, you're supposed to understand the requirement of the law in terms of data storage, data migration, data retention, etc., etc. Now, for Tanzanian law, for example, you're supposed to understand which role do you play in the data value chain under our law. And with that, you understand now what type of contract you need to enter with the other parties within the data value chain. So are they controllers? Are they processors? Are they, data storers? So When you understand that, so these are the nitty-gritties of security that you need to understand and to have proper arrangement and agreement while you also comply with the law on your part. But again, I'll go back, reputation of the organization that you're dealing with for holding such data, because the liability as a lawyer is twofold. First, your own confidentiality liability as a lawyer. And then secondly, liability as a data controller or processor, which is separate from the liability as a lawyer. So you might be suffering twice if you're not careful. Yes.
And still talking about getting into innovations, of course, there is now AI, which a lot of people are using, for different things. But if you go to the legal field, they want to use that for legal research and case preparation and all that. How is that? If, when we look at before we get into the integrity of how you'll use that information, but how, if that is done well, if we get onto the looking at the upside of this, what would that do for a lawyer, for example, when you're doing your day-to-day business, or doing your day-to-day case log and working on that? How would artificial intelligence help you do your business?
Well, I have several, some of them answers, some of them might be conflicting each other. However, my take is that the world is divided within conservatives and liberals all the time. There are people that accept change, they go with it. And there are people that don't accept changes. Unfortunately, lawyers are in the latter. We are one of those people that are really rigid when it comes to change, and much less about technological changes. However, I have one saying, and I will send it to you. It comes from one of the celebrated and most loved judges by lawyers. I would say worldwide, but we can use the word Commonwealth jurisdiction. His name is Lord Denny. And actually, it's one of the plaques behind me. Yeah, so let me read it. He says, if we never do anything which has not been done before, we shall never get anywhere. The law will stand still while the rest of the world goes on, and that will be bad for both.
Yeah.
So I believe this is very opportune with the question that you're putting forth. And so I'm one of those who believes in embracing technology and change and AI.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, it must be embraced with caution. So now what we are seeing is that AI is helping shape the legal sector. For example, we have softwares that are doing contract review and analysis.
Yeah. And
they are doing that at a higher accuracy and higher speed than human beings. We should embrace it. If the results themselves, and remember, the client wants accuracy, wants the work to be done faster. So why should we embrace human in this category? But when it comes to other areas, let's embrace humanism. So it's not a case of either or, but it's a case of both. So it's very good to embrace AI with perhaps reservations in areas, because we have seen now lawyers are being busted for using AI to write exams, to write articles, to write what. The problem is that the sources may not be original or accurate from time to time. So embrace with reservations. So that is my take, and I'm seeing that more and more are doing that. I was shocked, but now I'm used to. The first time I opened LinkedIn, and I was told, I want to write something, and I was suggested to use AI to write whatever I wanted to write.
Yeah.
I've always been saying, no, I want to be original on LinkedIn.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you embrace it and see what it can do. Yeah.
I think the other challenge is that it has to learn the language. So the more it's fed, the more it's able to derive something and the challenge is now is not enough has been done to be able to feed the algorithm to be able to produce accurate,
Yeah,
you know,
the desired
yeah,
outcome.
yeah,
Exactly.
and then there is an issue of bias and all these other things that come into play at the same time. So on the other end, though, I think you tackled on the downside where people are getting busted for using that in writing papers and you know, uh, trying to sit exams and they're submitting work that is produced by AI, which is, I think the challenge is that what the results it gives me are probably the same results it will give you when you go and put in the same information at
Yes,
this point. So there is
it's true.
so it's tough to deal with. We want to embrace it, but there is still more to be done to feed the algorithm to be able to work the desired outcome we would all want at this point. So something else that I would like us to tackle also is blockchain, because that is also another space that you can also, which is a bit more secure and has proven, and I think has a better reputation in terms of how secure it can keep the data. But how are blockchain technologies being adopted within the legal space, and is it one of the areas that you're also looking into exploring while you're doing your work?
Okay. So from the Tanzanian perspective, it's not necessarily one of the big hits in terms of we do not have a lot of lawyers or legal practitioners who are exploring or exploiting the potentials of blockchain. So we are seeing most of it in fintechs and other sectors that are product oriented. However, for law practitioners, most relevance and activity is within the intellectual property side of things, with regards to using blockchain and its entire chain as an area to process intellectual property rights and related endless chain that one property, one photograph can actually be reproduced and shared through the entire blockchain. There is a conversation with regards to protecting multiple works of art through blockchain, and speaking about certain tinga artists in terms of paintings and whatnot, which are peculiar to a certain nature, and exploring how you can do that with NFTs, etc., etc. So, in a manner of speaking, that is one area that I'm seeing more and more conversations with regards to how to explore the blockchain technology in the legal sector so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that gets as we go by. Of course, I hope that gets to develop and get to be embraced more, because in the fintech side it has been adopted, but I think in the legal space it can help. For example, in storing evidence and files, you can easily do that on the blockchain,
Yes,
and they would be secure
exactly.
because it has been able to be reliable when it comes to the finance side, and dealing with
Yeah.
that, and even with NFTs, as you talked about, though NFTs are not a very popular topic at the moment, but nonetheless, we wait to see how that will also be utilized, because it can also play as one of those areas for chain of custody, whether evidence management and among other things. So the other thing I would like to know is the role. For example, you deal with startups, and you are well versed in that area too, as far as startups go. And what role does when you go into data analytics in informing legal strategies and decision making whenever you are dealing with, let's say, startups and helping them?
So you're saying what role does analytics
Data analytics, yes.
No, it plays a lot. For one, our entire service system is hooked to a data analytics system that always tells us with the audience, demographics that are related with the audience, engagement, conversion, everything that are related with what we are communicating out there, especially on a tech scale. Now, we started that since day one. We were setting up our firm, for example. I'm speaking from our firm perspective in 2014. So we always knew who we were talking to, and we always knew when they were listening and when they were responding. And so it's a massive role. Now, of course, tools in terms of analytics are many, but customer satisfaction surveys, questionnaires shared through analytical tools. It's something very, very important that we do. So we do a lot of policy intervention, policy dialogues, workshops, etc. And tools like that work. Analytical tools like that, especially which are systematic and real time in nature, work the best to inform you with regards to where you are going, and whether you are doing that journey alone or the startups are with you together. So I'm glad that this is well placed, even with the Tanzania Startup Association that we work closely with. Just about to launch a data report, startups report for 2023. It will be done on the 27th of March, and part of it, yeah. So I'm also part of the task force that will be doing the workshop behind or ahead of that, of the unveiling of that. So yeah, I'm glad that TSA themselves are very big with regards to analytics to inform them on what's happening in the startup space.
Okay, Kheri, thank you so much for joining us on this episode, and we've thoroughly enjoyed this. And I definitely look forward to having you on, and then we talk about the startup ecosystem within Tanzania, and even Africa, on the continent at large, and also where what is exciting for you and that. But in this episode, we are specifically looking at only the legal aspect of it.
No worries. I've enjoyed this, and I'm definitely looking forward being here again and to have more diverse conversations whenever you wish. I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate that, and we shall take you up on that. Guys, the Finance and Future Tech podcast every Thursday at 8 p.m. East African time. That's when you get to listen to that on eJazz Radio.